Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, gave her father 41. It's time for some Lizzie Borden. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily and you are at the home of the Forever Theater Kid, and you are watching yet another installment of Bloody Broadway. It is my first of doing a true crime that a musical or a play has been based off of. Today we are starting with Lizzie Borden. It's huge. So there was a musical based on the life and trial and the instance that is Lizzie Borden, which we will get into. It's a wild ride. If you are interested in musical theater and true crime, or you're just a true crime junkie, leave all the sources to where I got my information down below. If you feel the need to fact check me, please do. Leave it in the comments and tell me. We're gonna get into it, but do you think Lizzie Borden did it? So make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you like all the things I just said something about, and follow me on Instagram and the TikTok and everywhere else. It's all gonna be listed down below. Let's get into it. Let's talk about Lizzie Borden and a very, very gruesome death. Topics discussed in this video are for mature audiences only. Discretion is advised. So without further ado, let's get into the tale of Lizzie Borden. So the reason I chose this story is because there's a really awesome musical out that's called Lizzie. Lizzie is a musical of 4 women fronting a 6-piece rock band. Lizzie is rage, sex, betrayal, bloody murder. Lizzie is American mythology set to a blistering rock score. Lizzie is a new American musical with the sound owing less to Sondheim and Andrew Lloyd Webber than to Bikini Kill, The Runaways, and Heart. This musical is a storyline that really centers around the women of this show. I love it. There are no men in this play. The characters are Lizzie Borden, Emma Borden, Bridget, or as they call her, Maggie, we'll get into that, and Alice, which is a close friend of Lizzie. I've never been able to see it in person, but the score is just sickening. It's a heavy metal rock show, and I'm all about that. Anyone doing Lizzie, I would like to volunteer as tribute. I'll do it. Hi, Interjecting Emily here. I'm really excited to announce that this video is being sponsored by Mind, Body, Money and their resiliency brain training programs. This company is head up by my friend and fellow college colleague, Emily, and their whole mission is to create programs that help actors and just humans alike who are seeking to expand their creative brains and working through personal growth through a different perspective and through a different lens. I have taken a course with Emily before and it's been really eye-opening. I'm actually going to take another one again. I'm very excited. Programs are extremely beneficial for actors, especially people who are trying to get into the industry and feel like their inner peace is being taken away from them from outside distractions, negative inner monologue talk. And this course really helps you find ways of coping with those anxieties and coping with those negative thoughts. I myself found different ways on how to create a more resilient brain when the auditioning world opens back up again. But not only that, it's really helped me become a stronger, more resilient person, not only actor-like situations, but also just real life situations. So I'm really excited. I have an exciting code for y'all. I will leave both links to both programs that will be available for my link. My link can be used at both programs, either the ResilientSelfProgram.com, the ResilientActorProgram.com, which is the program that I was part of. My code is M21, and you can use that at checkout for either registration. People using my code will get 75% off the original price. Emily is an actor herself, so she knows how actors think. She knows how actors work. She's in grad school now to even further her studies in this, and I just think her methods and her kindness and her empathy is just beautiful, and I think she's a really wonderful person to work with and to be coached by. So again, my code is M21, and make sure you tell me down below or DM me and let me know if you're gonna do this program with me. I'm really excited and I hope to see you there. So thank you so much, Mind, Body, Money, for sponsoring this video of Lizzie Borden, and let's get back into the video. Borden's August 4th, 1892, Falls River, Massachusetts. shit's about to go, no, shit has gone down. We enter the home of Andrew Jackson Borden and Abby Dufresne Gray Borden. They are found in a not great way. They are found dead in their home in separate rooms, both in crude way of saying hacked to death with a hatchet. It's not looking good. This murder sparked probably the biggest celebrity moment of the time. This was the biggest shit to go down there maybe ever. This was the O.J. Simpson of the time. Let's backtrack a little bit, find out who these people are and why this may have happened and who may have done it. So, Andrew Jackson Borden at the time of his death was 70 years old. He had a new wife. Her name was Abby Dufresne Borden. She was 64 years old. These two did not have any children together, but Andrew did have 2 daughters from his late wife, Sarah, who died of, I'm not quite sure what she died of. She was a very sickly woman and she died earlier in 1862. His 2 daughters were Lizzie and Emma Borden. Older women for their time, killing it in my eyes, but interesting choice of words. Lizzie at the time of the murder was 32 and Emma at the time of the murder was 42. Not married, living their best. No, living their lives under their father's roof, just living that spinster lifestyle. The Bordens were an extremely wealthy family, but you wouldn't know it by looking at them because Andrew was extremely frugal. The dude was cheap as f***. Let's just put it that way. Oh God. Anytime I talk about this kind of stuff, I feel like they're gonna haunt me in my own home. He had kind of his hands in many of businesses. He was in real estate, he was an undertaker, he kind of just did a bunch of stuff. But he was so cheap that, like, as an undertaker, if he wanted to charge someone for a large casket, he knew he could fit them into a smaller casket by just shaving a little bit off the foot, maybe a whole foot, literally. He would put them in a smaller casket and charge the family for a large casket. What a dick. He was also extremely frugal with his family. They were probably worth about, in our money, he was probably like a lower end of the scale millionaire. That feels ridiculous to say. In our money, he was probably worth about $8 million. I don't know where that money went because it sure as hell didn't go to anything like necessities. They didn't have any water. They didn't have any plumbing. They were pooping out in the backyard. And they didn't have any electricity, so it was all candles and prayers. It was an extremely religious household, an extremely strict household, and it sounded like hell to me. So all the rich people in town, people that actually like spent their money and probably put it back into the economy back then, lived on this part of town called the Hill. Hill had like all the parties. It's where all the influencer houses were. It was where it was at. It's where everybody was partying. It's where everybody was just like living their best, turn of the century life, getting the like cutest corsets, breathing the littlest amount of air. But they, the Bordens, lived in town. They lived in the industrial part of town, closer to all of Andrew's businesses, so he could literally go to work at any hour. He seriously reminded me of Ebenezer Scrooge, just kind of burning the midnight oil, always going to his different businesses and being a miser. They lived at 92 2nd Street in this gorgeous home. Looks like a murder house to me. The girls were not having the best time. They weren't really enjoying their lives. They were extremely close to their mother. When she passed and their father remarried, they did not like Abby. They didn't like her. I think they may have liked her at the very beginning, but then they started to think that her stepmother had married their father for his money. Like, that's funny, bitch, because we don't even have plumbing. Things take a turn quite quickly when Abby's sister needs a little bit of money. Andrew decides to give his sister-in-law a rental property and money to help kind of make ends meet. And this was a very bad move on Andrew's part, because remember, they don't even have indoor plumbing. They don't even have electricity. And he just gave this property away. Now, Abby and Lizzie were pissed. What the fuck, Dad? From that kind of time on, the girls were against Abby at all costs. Now, to be honest with you, I couldn't really find anything about Abby. I don't really know what type of person she really was, if she was kind of painted to be this evil stepmother, or if this woman was just trying to like make ends meet and trying to find her ways to survive through that time as a woman. I mean, she married him at age what? She married him later in his life, so she was probably a spinster or a widower before Andrew came along. So, you know, she must have been going through it too. So I don't really know about Abby as much. And I don't think she got along with the girls, and I don't think they had any type of lovey-dovey relationship. To kind of settle his daughter's extreme anger towards him and Abby, he gave his daughters a rental property that was worth, I want to say it was worth like maybe between $1,200 and $1,400. They realized all the shit that would have to go into keeping the rental property and keeping it decent and running and livable was way more than they expected, and they couldn't keep it up, so they sold it back to Andrew for $5,000. So they were stuck in that house. They all lived under the same roof, one happy-go-lucky family. I would love to watch a sitcom about them. Can you imagine their opening thing? The women hated their stepmother. Anytime that anyone in town would refer to Abby as Lizzie and Emma's mother, they vehemently were just like, ugh, she's our stepmother. Or no, they wouldn't even say that. Her name is Mrs. Borden to us. Just puts a chill down your spine, doesn't it? There's also another person in this household, the maid. Her name was Bridget Sullivan. She was Irish. The girls would call her Maggie. It's a cute little nickname. No, their previous maid's name was Maggie, so they just decided, hey you, I don't care about your actual name or your identity. You work for me, your name's Maggie. Bridget just had to deal with it. So before the murders, she was working for them for 3 years, doing what she had to do to make ends meet herself. Emma was older, she was a little bit more brash, and she was a little bit stronger willed. She was quiet and reserved, but she was, I would say, probably more like in charge out of the two sisters. But Lizzie was much more sociable, did a lot of charity work in town. She was a school teacher. Like I said, extremely religious upbringing, so that kind of continued into her career life as well. Lizzie was very involved in the church in town. Everybody knew Lizzie. Little did they know of all the shit that was really going down behind closed doors. A couple of months before the murders, there was a burglary in the Borden household, which really put Andrew on edge. I think because everybody in town knew how rich they were, but didn't spend the money anywhere, so people were probably wondering, where is that money? Or so Andrew must have thought. He put locks on every single door in the house. And not just like locks on windows and entry points. No, locks on every single door that went into every single room. And if he wasn't, or anyone wasn't in those rooms, they stayed consistently locked. Now this will play a big part in the story later. You had to have a key to get to most places in this house. Sounds like a hellhole, but also kind of sounds like how I live my life. I kind of check doors like 1,000 times to make sure they're locked. So the tensions in the house were starting to build for the murders, especially from the burglary to the murders. Lizzie was kind of like an oddball, like although she was very sociable, like she made friends with pigeons. And her dad didn't like that. He thought birds were disgusting. And he also thought that the pigeons would attract male intruders for some reason, because dudes love pigeons. In May of 1892, 2 months before the murders, he goes up and like chops off all of the pigeons' heads in like the pigeon coop. Dude, chill. Like that's so messed up. That's like King Triton'ing it to the nth degree. Too much. That pissed Lizzie off. Like she was just like in the musical, like that's probably the biggest like head thrasher moment. Why are all these heads off? Why are all these heads off? In July of that summer, the daughters took a very extended vacation just to like get the fuck away from the family. They were constantly fighting. Leading up to the murders, the family was also getting ill quite often. There was ideas that the family was being poisoned. You know, Andrew must have enemies in town. People were just getting paranoid in the house. Nothing seemed to be going well for this family. It just all kind of seemed like it was just spiraling to a horrific end. August 4th, 1892. We're gonna go through the timeline of events of that day. Emma Borden is not home. She had left a couple of days earlier to get away from the family for a little bit longer, visit some friends. Bitch needed to get out. She hated everything. Sweet little sister. That song? That's what that's about. Another person visiting the household that day, John Morris was their uncle. He was visiting. He was the uncle on their late mother's side, and he was in town to do some business and also to visit other family members. So in the very early morning, the household is up early. At 6 a.m., Bridget, not Maggie, is awake and she's starting to make breakfast. Soon after that, Andrew and John eat a lengthy breakfast together while Lizzie slept in. Very seldom did Lizzie or Emma eat breakfast with Andrew and Abby. Didn't like each other, didn't want to eat with them. A little bit before 8, John leaves to go visit his family and do the business that he was there to do. At 9:15, Andrew leaves to go on a walk and to do work in town, presumably. Presumably. Is that a word? Presumably. Presumably. I would have assumed that Abby's with them at some point because Abby then goes upstairs to make up the guest room where John is staying because, you know, John is a weak man and can't make his own bed. Make your own bed, John. So, 9:15, Abby goes upstairs. 9:30, Abby comes back downstairs. Figure out a place to be, Abby. She comes back downstairs to get some fresh linen for the bed because John is a nasty piece of crap. Why do you need your bed changed twice? Abby's like, hey, Bridget, I want you to clean the windows today. Go do that. And she's like, cool, thank you for being so kind. And she goes to start her work of cleaning the windows outside and also doing her regular chores. She sees her friend who lives next door, the next door neighbor's servant, and she starts talking to her over the fence. So she's kind of going about her day as normal. She's not feeling very well though. The whole house had been sick, but it's a very, very hot day and Bridget does not feel very well herself. For about an hour, around 10:30, she comes back inside and because she is done finishing the windows outside, so she goes inside to start her normal chores. At 10:45, Andrew comes home, Bridget lets him in, and we see Lizzie come downstairs to breakfast. Her father asks her where Abby is, and she's just like, oh no, don't ask me about my stepmom, I don't care about her. And she's saying that she had a note from someone in town saying that they were sick and they needed her. So she's like, so like, Mrs. Borden's not here. Leave a message at the beep. At this time, Andrew Borden takes a key, uses the key to open a door. Oh, I guess I was wrong. Okay, I'm reading a thing right here that says, Borden took the key to his bedroom off a shelf and went back up the stairs. The room could only be reached by these stairs as there was no hallway and the front stairs only gave access to Lizzie's room from which Emma's could be reached to. So the layout of this house is really, really confusing. There's kind of no connecting hallways. There's like the kitchen living space, and I would assume that's kind of the main area. The back staircase only goes up to the Borden's like suite, Mr. Borden and Mrs. Borden's bedroom. There's the front hallway only gives access to Lizzie's bedroom, Emma's bedroom, and also the guest bedroom. So there's no hallways connecting the two sets of bedrooms.
Okay, editing, Emily. I was able to take a virtual tour of the Borden house, and that's the clips that you're seeing here. I just want to mention that in the virtual tour that I'll be showing to kind of like make this make sense, because it is very confusing. I believe that there was a renovation in which they created a hallway. So the second floor, now there is access between what was Lizzie and Emma's room. Their rooms were just conjoined, oddly, as if it were a suite. I feel like today it would be like the bedroom and that would be like a majorly big closet. That's like what it reminds me of. But I believe they broke down part of that wall with a door, and that connects what was Lizzie's room to what was her father and Mrs. Borden's room. Because at that spot, there's also access to go up the stairs to the servants' quarters. And they must have redone those rooms because there's like 5 bedrooms up in the servants' quarters, which would have been the attic. It's very confusing. I hope you're following.
So after Andrew gets back and finds out that his wife is not at home, he takes a key that is on a shelf to his bedroom to access his bedroom. He's the only one that can get into the bedroom because he's the only one with the key. Because remember, all the rooms have keys, all the rooms remain locked at all times because it's hell on earth. Okay? Okay. A few minutes later, he comes back downstairs via the back steps because that's the only way you can get up there. He comes back downstairs and he gets comfy on his like wee little couch and he takes a wee little baby nap. At the time, Lizzie is in the same vicinity heating up an iron to work on some like handkerchiefs that she has that she's like, I just need to like press these. And she's talking to Bridget about and saying, Maggie, and Bridget's like, fuck you, my name's Bridget. Did you know that there's a sale happening in town today? You should go to the sale. They're selling like dresses for 10 cents on the dollar or something like that. And she's just like, no, I have to work all day, so no. I also don't feel well, and I feel like I'm gonna vomit. And Lizzie's just like, why don't you go take a nap? She's like, maybe I will, maybe I'll go close my eyes. So she goes up to her bedroom a couple minutes before 11 a.m. and pretty much falls asleep right away. It's really hot. Her room is probably the highest out of everybody else's, so while heat is probably risen to her room, August, Massachusetts, and so she falls asleep for a couple minutes. She wakes to an alarming sound of Lizzie screaming, Maggie, come down, come quick, father's dead, somebody's coming and kill him. So as she's on her way down, she's like, Dad's dead. Good morning, what a lovely day. So she's standing by the door, she runs downstairs, Lizzie stops her at the door, and let Bridget see the dead body. She's like, Dad's dead, go get the doctor. So Bridget doesn't see the dead body immediately. She doesn't see Andrew dead, but she's standing by the door. So Bridget runs, tries to find the doctor. She can't find the doctor. So she goes to the neighbor's house, maybe the neighbor of the friend that she was talking to a couple hours earlier, and she's like, please come next door, tragedy's hit, Mr. Borden's dead, please help. So the neighbor comes over and they see the site. Trigger warning, it's about to get graphic, so if you need to, I'll just give you a couple seconds. Okay, we're back. Are you ready? Not gonna be great from here on out. Andrew is on his couch. He has 11 blows to his face with a hatchet. Apparently one eyeball was like out, which means he was asleep when it happened. So I guess that's kind of a good thing. It was pretty f***ing gruesome. And they're stunned. It is a mess. Strangely enough though, people say that there was no blood anywhere except for the body. And a killing like that, you would think that there would be blood everywhere, but there wasn't. There was just blood at the body. No footsteps, no handprints, no nothing. Lizzie is not covered in blood. Nobody is covered in blood. There is just a bloody mess. This murder literally happened minutes after Bridget went upstairs. I'm not implementing Bridget in any way, but I don't know how she wouldn't have heard it. Even if you're like kind of in a dead sleep, I don't know how you don't hear something like that. I would imagine that it's a pretty gruesome sound that isn't quiet 11 times. Just a thought. These are all my opinions. I don't know. I've never been in this situation. I hope I'm never in this situation. Let's continue. A few minutes go by after seeing Andrew, and Lizzie goes, Bridget, I have to imagine that Mrs. Borden has come home. Will you go and check? Go and check where? Go and check the guest bedroom. Lizzie is basically just like, I think that there's an active killer in our house, and I think you should go upstairs and check, Maggie. Bridget was not about to go upstairs by herself. Yeah, they were totally afraid that there was a madman in the house, and Lizzie's like, go upstairs, let's see if she's home. I mean, like, where are all the brave men now? I get it. I always say, like, let the women do the work. But, like, why do we always have to be the ones to find bullshit, too? Like, I don't want to see that. But she's like, I'm not going alone. So the neighbor, Adelaide Churchill, she's like, okay, I'll go with you, solidarity. We'll go up together. So they go up the front steps, because that's where the guest bedroom is. They go up the stairs, and they see the body of a woman, Abby, on the floor, face down. They see her feet from the doorway. She herself had 19 blows to her head via hatchet. It didn't even look like her. It looked like just a mere form of a human being. All of the blows were to the back of her head. The difference between her and Andrew, aside from the number of blows, Andrew's body was warm. He had just been killed. Abby's body, on the other hand, was cold, and the blood was starting to congeal around her body. It was determined that Abby was killed 90 minutes before Andrew was. Remember that. By 11:15, the police are called. So all of this happened within the farce-like entrances and exits all happened within a 30-minute time period. Remember, Andrew came home at 11:45. That's when Lizzie comes down the stairs for the first time. That's the first time we see Lizzie. All she does at that time is start, you know, ironing some shit and drinking some coffee and eating a cookie. Sounds great, by the way. I love that to be my breakfast of choice. Apparently that day there was like a big picnic in town, so no one was at the station except this one cop. So the cop had to literally run to the Borden house, see what shit had ensued, run to his police friends, and then bring his friends back. So it was just like in the interim, there's like passers-by, they're like, oh my God, is that body? Oh my God, let me see it. The scene is just like compromised. There is no evidence to be had because there's so many footprints now that there's like no way to prove whose footprints are whose. When police question her, her testimony goes like all over the place all the time. This could be due to the fact that she was given a tranquilizer by this guy, Dr. Bowen, the doctor that Bridget went to try to go find. He makes an appearance later and does the autopsy and everything like that because he's kind of like the doctor that does everything apparently. And he gives her a tranquilizer to calm her down. But apparently like Lizzie her story was changing all the time. At first she was saying that she was getting together like tools for fishing exhibition, so she was in the barn, and then she was saying no, she was in the yard, and she heard a moan and she came back in to find her dead dad. And when police investigated, they went into the area of the barn where she said that she was getting her fishing tools. There were no footsteps. There was nothing to prove that another person had been there for a long period of time gathering tools that they would need for a fishing exhibition. Really, Lizzie? Were you gonna go fishing? Were you? I don't know. I mean, were you gonna go fishing? Maybe you were. I don't know. So that was the crime. Now let's get into the investigation because that's even more fun. So obviously Lizzie, as we know, because of the rhyme that was said at the beginning, Lizzie became the main focus of the trial. However, there were a couple of other suspects at first. First and foremost, they try to blame it on someone who's not white and is an immigrant. Oh, it's this Portuguese worker who was so angry about money that he killed them. And then they were like, oh, it was Bridget. And Bridget's like, what the f? Said it was John. But John had like many an alibi, and he's just like, nah, bitch. They kept saying, oh, there must be so many enemies in town because they had so much money. Then you think about like, you know, the way that the house is laid out and the quick timing that it happened, and also the method in which the killing was. Like, there's no way that anyone who was not familiar with that house and the layout of the house could in any way, shape, and form commit those two murders. I'm a little ahead of myself. So finally, the police were just like, all right, this was pretty gruesome. I think we're gonna start zeroing in on Miss Lizzie Borden. Start collecting circumstantial evidence that is pretty incriminating to Lizzie that lead up to the murders. Find out that a couple days leading up to the murder, Lizzie was seen at the general store, the pharmacy, trying to buy prussic acid, which was cyanide from a local drugstore, to kill moths and to take stains out of her cape. But like the clerk was just like, nah, that's just poison. What? Poison? What? I just need to get these stains out of this winter cloak in the middle of August. The night before the murders, Lizzie also went to her like biffle, Alice. Remember in the musical, there's 4 women? Alice was like her confidant, and she was just like, I think some shit is happening. I think something's gonna happen in my family. And Alice just like, you're in your head, you're fine. She says, quote, I feel as if something were hanging over me and I cannot throw it off, end quote. Can you imagine being Alice just being like, is you good? So now we go back to the day of the murders. It's kind of just talked about and discovered that ain't nobody be able to get through that fucking house if you don't know it. There's just no way that someone could get through that house, number one, without being seen by either Bridget or Lizzie or Andrew before the deaths happen, and could just quietly get through everywhere. You need a key to get into most rooms. You need to know the layout of all the different ups and downs and different corridors. Like there's not a lot of places to hide. Also discovered that the Abby, her body was undetected for 90 minutes. While the house is awake, Abby was being murdered. It was around 9:30 she was meant to have been murdered. Remember, she had more hacks to her body. Her body would have had, I know this is graphic, but think about it. All of the strikes were to the back of her head, and there was no indication that she was already on the ground. The way that her body was found is that woman fell. That woman fell onto her face. So her body must have created a sound when it hit. A full-grown woman, dead weight, like that's a lot of sound. And at 9:30, the entire house is awake. Bridget is probably outside doing housework and cleaning the windows, but Lizzie would have heard that from her room because it's in the guest bedroom. By all things considered, the way in which Abby and Andrew were killed were blitz kills. They were extremely impassioned. They were full of rage. They were extremely personal because a hatchet is not a knife, but it's pretty close to a knife in how close you have to be. And for someone to create such a blitz kill like that and then cool off for 90 minutes until killing and hide? Crazy. There was also no follow-up note after Lizzie had said that Abby had gone to find a friend. There was no follow-up to that. That didn't lead anywhere. There was no friend that said I was the sick one that wrote her a note. There was no note that was found. No note.
Bed's empty. No note.
Nothing was found. It was like a red herring. So it just gives the idea that Abby never left the house. She was there the whole time. In her talks with the police, Bridget claims that when she let Andrew Borden in, when she let him back inside, she heard Lizzie laugh at the top of the stairs. Now, it wasn't proven. There was nothing that kind of came of it, but like, it's just creepy. It's not evidence, it's just creepy. And she would have heard her laughing near the staircase where Abby was found. There was a hatchet that was found in the basement. That's where they kept their hatchets. Cute, sweet space. There was one hatchet that was found that was new, and the handle was not on it. It was clean, but the handle was just not found. Bridget also said it would have been very strange for Lizzie to be in the barn, like she said, you know, in there for any extended amount of time because it was so hot that day. She's like, she wouldn't have, I mean, look at this picture. Look at the clothes she's wearing. It's not like she's like in a summer frock. Like, she would have been hot as balls. And also, like I said earlier, there were no footsteps that said that anyone was disturbing the peace of this space for very long. So they thought that was also very bizarre.
Funky, how bizarre. How bizarre, how bizarre.
And the thing that probably made Lizzie look the worst is that Lizzie couldn't keep her damn cool around this. I mean, she had just seen the horrifying scene of her father's face and her stepmother's head, and the sergeant was just like asking her about her mother, and Lizzie goes, "She's not my mother, she's Mrs. Borden." Whoa. Taking notes on that. The night of the murder, they send away for Emma. They have Emma come back. Bridget's just like, I'm not spending the night, because they kept the bodies in the house. They kept the bodies in the house because they didn't know where else to put them, and it was still like an active investigation. And Lizzie and Emma, I believe, but definitely Lizzie, stays in the house that night. And Bridget was like, the f I'm not staying here. So on August 7th, Alice, remember BFF Alice? She comes over to the house and she sees Lizzie like setting a dress aflame on the kitchen stove. She was just like, oh, I got paint on it, I have to burn it. Alice just goes, if I was you, I wouldn't let anybody see me doing that. Alice spills the beans because she's just like, I saw something, I'm saying something. And the dress is really what gets Lizzie charged. It might not be physical evidence, but it's enough for them to be like, all right, bring her in. So what's interesting about her dress, think about it, back then, Victorian era, it wasn't like we have clothes now. Dresses cost a lot of money to make. Yes, they had a lot of money, and they were super frugal. So it's not like Lizzie had hundreds of dresses to choose from every single day, like the people on the hill probably had. She probably had a couple of dresses, probably one to teach in, one that was every day, and probably something for Sundays, and maybe one nice one, like who knows, but not that many. To burn a dress for your father and your stepmother were brutally murdered, very incriminating. Courts back then, that was enough. That was enough to arrest her. And Lizzie was charged with 3 counts of murder. But Emily, there were only 2 people that were killed. Yes. She was charged for Andrew's murder, she was charged for Abby's murder, and then she was also charged for Abby and Andrew's murder together. I would like to say our justice system makes so much more sense to me now, but it truly doesn't. Trial was straight up like, for the time, it was some O.J. Simpson type shit. And Lizzie, the whole time you would think ladies back then would be in a state of mourning for quite some time if someone in their immediate family would pass. Probably for months you would be just wearing black, and like Lizzie wasn't. Lizzie was just like, she was dressed to the nines. My dog is snoring. As I like to think, Lizzie was in mourning her entire life, so she's just like, I'm gonna start living my best now. During the trial, Lizzie did not testify for herself. She had many a good lawyer, and they were probably like, don't you dare do that, don't do it. the accounts of what Lizzie said to police were used as her testimony. Alice appeared many times in court to talk about the dress, because that was like their thing. They love talking about that dress. Really hard for them to get a judge, because number one, this case had sparked so much celebrity in town, so they probably felt there was no judge that could be impartial, nor a jury that could be impartial. And also there was no judge that could believe that a Sunday school teacher could murder her family like this. They were just like, that doesn't happen. Women don't do that. Even the doctor, Dr. Bowman, said, I quote, "I do not believe a hardened man of the world, much less a gentle and refined woman in her sober senses, devoid of sudden passion, could strike such a blow with such a weapon as was used on Mr. Borden and linger to survey the bloody deed." I do. Oh, I do. But the men of that time just like, oh, there's no way a woman could be in passion like that to be so strong. You have no idea. At one point, skulls of Abby and Andrew were presented as evidence. There must have been a funeral already, and I believe the funeral also took place in the den where Andrew was murdered, which seems real fun. The skulls were used as evidence, and everything except the bone was steamed off. And there were huge gaping holes in the skulls. Well, Lizzie saw that and that bitch fainted. I mean, who wouldn't? I would. I'm almost fainting talking about it. It's so disgusting. The prosecutor's motive was greed and dislike for the stepmother. Since the money issues that we discussed earlier, if Andrew were to die suddenly, that everything would go to Abby. And Lizzie felt entitled to the money that her father had earned. They thought she killed Abby to make sure that she wouldn't get the money, and then in that respect continued to kill her father as well, so that the money would go directly to Lizzie and Emma. That was their motive that they used for her. And almost everything that the prosecution tried backfired. Like, Lizzie would have been covered in blood. Why wasn't Lizzie covered in blood? Poison purchase was thrown out of court, because why would we be questioning a woman trying to buy something from a pharmacy? In the bodies, there was no trace of poison found. Emma testified and completely defended her sister, her character, and that she would never do anything like this, and she never let slip anything that would be incriminating towards her sister. So that was enough. The jury deliberated. The jury of 12 men deliberated for 1 hour. Miss Lizzie Borden was acquitted and found not guilty on every single one of the 3 charges. Post-trial life, Lizzie was a social pariah. In fact, probably both her and Emma were social pariahs, Lizzie more so. She actually changed her name to Lizbeth because she was like, I'm starting my whole new life because my daddy is dead and my zaddy was a dick. They got all the money and they were able to do everything that they ever wanted to do. Now, Lizzie remained, I believe she remained a school teacher, but she definitely remained extremely charitable. She still tried to take place, even though she was a social pariah, she still tried to be a member of society and help and give money to people in need. You know, she started to live the life that she had always wanted to live. She was 32 years old. She was a spinster, so she's like, why not live what I want to do? I don't have anybody bossing me around. So her and Emma had a house on the hill, a dream that Lizzie had always wanted. The house on the hill was called Maple Croft. Lizzie became kind of like a party animal. She partied all the time with like a bunch of theater people. Like, she kind of got into the theater people realm, and she's just like hanging out all the time. She got very close with a woman named Vance O'Neill. It was kind of rumored and thought that they were lovers, and so it kind of also brought up ideas that her BFF Alice was also a lover of hers. There were never any gentleman callers that we know of for Lizzie Borden. No one came forth and ever said that they were, you know, proposed marriage to Lizzie. It was just a thought that maybe that was a possibility. But Vance and Lizbeth, I mean, get a new name, get it, were like attached to the hip. And Emma didn't like this. This is why I think it's a possibility that at least Vance and Lizzie were lovers, because since they grew up in such a religious, staunch religious household, I'm sure they were in a liberal church. I mean, it's the 1800s, so, you know, it just begs the question, because after that, Emma was like, I'm done. And they didn't talk at all for the rest of their lives. Like, they got in one really big fight around that time, and Emma just left and they never spoke again. It makes me think that that may have been a possibility because of the way in which they separated. They separated paths. Emma hanging out with this group of people, very new aged and probably drinking and partying and doing all types of drugs and kind of liberating themselves in any way that they wanted to. Emma was not about that. She was extremely quiet. She was extremely reserved. That was not her life. And I think if Lizzie also committed the murders, that like this way of life was just her final straw and she couldn't deal with it anymore. However, if that's the case, there was never a moment, even on her deathbed, Emma never ratted Lizzie out if she did commit the murders. She always said, that is my little Lizzie, I will always take care of her. Her mother gave her that job before she died to always take care of Lizzie, and she did. Lizzie died on June 1st, 1827, basically after complications after a gallbladder surgery. She kind of got an infection, and Emma died 9 days later, which was like just bizarre that they were just so in sync with each other on so much, especially like even with their deaths. They were buried in the family plot with their mother, their deceased sister, who actually died very, very early in their childhood. I don't even know her name, to be honest with you. And also, I'm pretty sure that bodies of the father and Abby were also in that plot. That place must be haunted as hell, and I believe that there are tours and people can stay in the house where the Bordens are. Well, their spirits probably are. I was watching a video where they were like touring the house, and they keep pictures of the murder scenes like right where the murders happened, and that the house is extremely haunted. And it's like, well, no shit. If you keep the residual energy of the freaking murder scene there forever, of course it's gonna be haunted. Like, of course it's gonna be haunted. Are you dumb? Like, of course it's gonna be haunted. And people stay there. That's some white people shit. I think there's a lot that goes into this motive that wasn't discovered and couldn't be discovered back then. I think the motive, if Lizzie did it, I think that the motive is much darker than they were probably able to discover back then. I was reading up on this article that just really, like, it made a lot of sense to me. So obviously this is all my opinion, but I am basing it off this article. A murder like this, a blitz murder that is so personal and is so violent, I think really comes from a place of rage and there have been many instances where murders like this have happened. They're called parricide, children murdering parents, and that usually happens after a reaction of huge, that is present in families where the biological mother or the mother figure is not present, is ill. Lizzie's mother was very, very ill and weak when they were very young. Emma had to act like the mother figure to Lizzie growing up. This happens in households where it's extremely religious and very strict religious views. Outside society might not even view a home like that to have such dark shit happening behind closed doors, because they are good people in town. They are the upstanding people in town. A lot of the time, those are the homes in which really dark shit is happening. That is like the epitome of wolf in sheep's clothing. It's just very odd that two women of a household who were decent looking, who had a lot of money, who were involved with the community, that there wouldn't be any type of male suitor or any type of want to get them to marry. That was very rare back then. It's a typical in a situation like that where they want to keep the family close and to not let anyone out of their sight and keep them on a short leash, which makes sense as to why the women never left the house. They probably were terrified that if they did leave the house, they would have absolutely nothing. So when they gave, even when they had that rental property, that they gave the rental property back and they had to go back, I mean, they couldn't survive in that rental property because it took too much money to put into it to thrive. And then they had to go back to that house where every door was locked and there were such constrictions. They couldn't shit in their own house. They had no lights. Like, apparently after the girl's mother died, a lot of family reached out to try to you know, ask if you needed help, and it takes a village, and Andrew was like, no, I don't need any help, I don't want any help. He just kept the girls kept the girls and then women extremely isolated. If that's the situation, there's only so much a human can take. And then add on the idea that if the father dies, they get nothing because all the money would go to the stepmother that, if, again, all my opinion and all my own conjecture, but if this was happening, that no one's doing anything to help these women. No one's doing anything to make their situation any better. Many times children repress these memories, and then there's just something that makes them snap. People might go, oh, well, she was an older woman, like, or she was in her 30s, like, wouldn't she have gotten over it by then, or wouldn't she have snapped before then? Well, your brain is trying to protect you for your entire life, and then one more thing makes it snap, like killing your friends that are pigeons, figuring out that if your father dies, you get none of the money that he hoarded your entire life while he was a, you know? Like, researchers have said, like, that's just a ticking time bomb. And there was no therapy back then. There's no way to help them. There was nothing except putting them in an insane asylum. Nothing would help them. It makes sense. It's been proven with other cases, you know, when this type of research was taking shape, taking form. They look back and they're like, wow, that's totally was a case of abuse and incest back then, and they just didn't have the research. I mean, maybe the stepmother knew and she didn't know how to help. Maybe she didn't want to help. Maybe she didn't like the girls and was jealous. I don't know. That's something that we won't ever know. I have so many questions. Like, I don't know if Lizzie did it. So many things point to it. If is happening, I think that's complete motive, and rightfully so. Do we live in a better world knowing that Andrew Borden wasn't in it anymore? Maybe. Didn't seem like a great guy to me. I feel bad for Abby, but I don't know what type of person she was. But what I don't understand is, I don't understand if Lizzie did these crimes, if she committed these murders, why wasn't she covered in blood? Why weren't her hands would be covered in blood? She would have blood on her face, she would have blood in her hair. Yes, maybe she changed dresses, but like, dresses didn't have zippers back then. Like, someone would have had to dress her, or it would have taken time for her to get dressed and undressed if she killed both of them. Also, she was seen in between 9:30 and 11. She was seen by Bridget. She would have been seen if she was covered in any type of blood. There was no mention of that. But did she change twice? If so, why did she only burn one dress? It was an idea that maybe Emma really wasn't gone, that Emma actually had come back and was hiding in the house and did the murders, like, or at least did one of them. Like, I don't know, because every time I'm like, oh, it's totally Lizzie, then I go, well, she wasn't covered in blood ever. It's all a mess. That is the tale of Lizzie Borden and what the musical Lizzie is based on. Thank you all for hanging in with me. That was a lot. I tried my best. I hope it was cohesive. I've just thought that this was an extremely interesting story. Well, y'all, it's fucked. I can't even imagine what that site was, and the fact that people stay in that house. I mean, I would go on a tour of it, but I don't think I would ever stay in that house. That's too messed up. So yeah, so that is the tale of Lizzie Borden. I feel extremely creeped out. I'm sure you do as well. If you would like to see more Bloody Broadway, and this one was for reals and Bloody Broadway, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram.
So thank you so much, Mind Body Money, for sponsoring this video. I'm so excited to work with you. I am an affiliate, so the link will always be down in my description bar below from now on in my videos. But yeah,
and let's close out this video as we close out all. Let's close the portal. Let's cleanse my home. Else the puck a liar call. So good night until you all. Give me your hands if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends.